Go.
Hello, this is Bug, and I have AZ with me. And we will be going over. We're starting a new YouTube series for the PAA channel, where called Almost Any Situation, where we will be going over either requested mons or just popular mons in the meta on how to both use them, as in prepping with them, what sets are good, what specifically makes them good. It's like, look at if they would fit on your team, if you want to pick them up, whatever, and how to beat them, because it can be tricky sometimes, especially in this meta for newcomers, to figure out how to beat certain Pokemon, especially if they're strong top tiers, like some of the 20 pointers, 19 pointers, 18 pointers, whatever. So stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, there's not much else to it, I guess.
There's not
We can
much
hop
else
into it.
to get into. We're going to teach you how to use whatever Pokemon you request in almost any situation, how to beat it.
Yep.
First up is the best mon in the meta. Number one pick, almost always, infinite amount of sets, Dragapult. If you want to go ahead and take this one.
This bitch does not run out of sets. But yeah, I'll take it. Why is it the best mon in the meta? This is really the only question that ever gets asked about Dragapult. Because, I mean, after you answer this question, there isn't really many other questions afterwards. It's extremely versatile, has so many sets. I can't think of another mon that has more sets. Even Mew probably can't run as many sets because it doesn't do as many things as effectively. But Dragapult just has so many, and it can do so much stuff. It's fast. One of the fastest Pokemon out there, especially one of the fastest viable ones out there. It has great coverage, absurd coverage, actually. It hits most things. It will be hitting most things super effective, even if it's just through U-turn. It has strong U-turns off its base attack. Utility up the ass. It has status in Will-O-Wisp and Thunderwave. It has utility in pivoting, because that's good utility. It has speed control, which is already good utility. It has light screen. It has reflect. It has disable. It has all this type of good stuff.
Its dual stab
Pivot.
is incredibly strong. Ghost Dragon is not easy to switch into. Like, you send in one guy to take the Dracos, it cannot resist fucking Shadow Ball and vice versa. And then just by virtue of being a pseudo legendary, it has great stats.
Yeah, it's a Pokemon, that's for sure. It's the epitome of being Pokemon. It's insane.
Yep. And to get us started with our first set, we have Sheer Force Life Orb. Yeah. With the great utility mentioned earlier, or not utility, the great coverage this thing has, it is very effective at running Sheer Force Life Orb with, stab, shadow balls, insane coverage for everything, Scald, Flamethrower, T-Bolt, hitting most things for super effective, if not very strong neutral damage, while at the same time still retaining a good bit of power pivoting. And just like, this is just some moves. It can even run Steel Wing to get that boost as well, or you can run Dragon Rush to get good Dragon Stab off of it and run mixed. This thing just has, again, so many moves it can click, so many viable buttons, that Sheer Force is one of its best, if not the best ability offensively.
And it can even still run utility if it wants to.
Right.
And it can run pivoting because it has Baton Pass. So you don't have to take Life Orb damage. So you can run Baton Pass with it.
Right. That will lead us into the next set. We covered an offensive one. Now we kind of want to cover the best defensive set, which Bug will talk about.
It is indeed. So P-Heal Pult. I love this set. I started getting this thing a while ago, but this thing is stupid. It can run so many things. P-Heal Pult, I personally feel, is the best Dragapult set out there, but maybe that's just because I'm a piece of shit staller. But I like P-Heal Pult. I think it's super fast, super fat, super dumb. It has Disable, it has Protect. On a Pokemon that already you might struggle to, smack it too hard, having the ability to just disable whatever you're going to do to it is extremely stupid. Being fast enough to substitute down is just incredible to scout. Being able to spam Will-O-Wisp, spam T-Wave, spam moves in general before the opponent can even hit you. Just get behind a sub, click Protect, and just spam whatever you want. Scald, Hex, Dragon Darts Facade, Wisp Hex, Disable, plus insert move here. It has so many things it can do. It can even still run pivot moves if it wanted to. It can just do too many things. It can DD, it can sub, it can disable, it can burn, it can spam status, it can pivot, it makes progress in such an annoying way to where your opponent will end up messing up out of rage, it's not really a plus of the set, but it is a thing that does happen because it just sits there and it will never die and it'll keep on making progress progressively throughout the game. And it's just such a very stupid Pokemon because it becomes a ghost type, which is usually so afraid of knock, that's no longer afraid of knock, especially when you add on burns and stuff. It's just It's very, very silly. And it's a ghost type that doesn't give two shits about pursuit because this thing's never switching. This thing just stays in and clicks its buttons.
And on top of that, you can just disable the pursuit and then get out for free later.
Yep. And it can even fling its Toxic Orb if it wanted to.
Yep. It's just... This is the Mon that will win the war of attrition always, by virtue of having decent bulk and an amazing speed tier with, just enough offensive stats to not give up too much by going bulky.
And like the perfect move pool for it. It's just such a dumb move pool to win the war of attrition.
Definitely.
And having a speed stat makes it huge. I think having this speed stat is what makes it
most definitely. Most of the time you will find teams topping off at 115 to 125 base speed, and you can most of the time with Pult go a non-speed boosting nature, drop a lot of EVs off of it, and end up having a lot more bulk than you rightfully deserve to have.
Well, no, with bulky sets you want to run speed boosting nature because you get more EVs out of it.
Yeah. Anyways,
but yeah, it's very dumb.
To go into the next Pult set, these are kind of ranked in terms of how often these Pult sets will come, with the secondary factor of how good are these sets. So you'll see P-Heal may be the best one, but you'll more often than not see Sheer Force Life Orb rather than P-Heal. And leading into the next one, we'll be leading to Special Pult with Hadron or Beads of Ruin. They're kind of interchangeable depending on, if you're running T-Bolt that game, if you have a Surge Surfer in the back or something, you will be running Hadron. If you don't, if you just want to run like Shadow Ball, Draco, Scald, whatever, you can run Beads. But you'll just generally be seeing choice specs as the item, or boots, or whatever, or even like the plate, a respective plate, or even expert belt running
terrain extender.
Yeah, terrain extender if you're really, really trying to go for the sweep with your guy in the back. And then you'll be seeing 3 moves, probably dual stab and then Thunderbolt if you're Hadron, or coverage move of choice, and U-turn. This thing is just going to come in, hit hard, set up terrain, turn off your sleep, maybe set up a Surge Surfer that you have to then worry about after seeing Hadron. Yeah, this guy's just strong. He hits strong, especially. Those Dracos are going to hurt.
Hits like a motherfucker, Jesus Christ.
And then leading into the next offensive set, the other side of the spectrum, we Sword of Ruin, Banded Sword of Ruin, coming in off of base 120 attack, clicking darts, clicking U-turn, being a absolute nuisance to switch into, because you don't have, this Mon doesn't have many checks. Like, you have to be very specific in how you check it.
This thing could just randomly click Dragon Dance and you now lose because, the calcs are already so slim. Because, even though, its special sets may be a little bit easier to check because, it's only 100 special attack. Its physical stats, its physical attack is 120. That's respectable, especially when you're so fast and you're just getting the jump on all the offensive Pokemon. It gives you a lot of opportunities to click your little button you want to click. So being able to just randomly get a Dragon Dance off may end the game right there. And it's just such a tricky Mon. It's hard to switch into. It's hard to, play around. It's all this type of stuff. It's
especially when you may have prepped for a special Pult. You may have prepped for Beads or Hadron, and then all of a sudden you see Sword and you're like, okay, well, that's just unfortunate.
The fact that both sets are extremely disgusting and that they can just rip you apart right there and then is just absurd because you have to prep for both and they're both so hard to actually deal with. It sometimes it feels you're a little strapped to check Pult, but
absolutely
it's definitely a terrifying set. I personally prefer physical Pult over special, but
I do prefer special. I like having all of my coverage and I like having an option for everything. You're already strapped to switch into this thing, so you may send in a neutral guy to the stabs and then get absolutely rocked by coverage. But I mean, when you're using Pult, you have to be versatile in the builder. You know, you can't sit here and you lock yourself into that 120 attack or that 100 special. You may want to bring these other sets, and not even just other offenses, but like P heal, and leading into the next set that we have, another offensive set.
You need to definitely be creative and open to new things when you're using Pult in the builder, because one week it could be P heal and the other week it could be some random Dragon's Maw.
Right.
Dragon's Maw.
Right. And this is the next set. You know, let's say you prep for one or the other. You know, at least with Hadron, Beads, and Sword, you see the ability. You can game plan around that. But what do you do when you don't see an ability off Pult? What's the next move? It's Adapt or Dragon's Maw, and Bug will talk about it here.
So the big thing about Adapt or Dragon's Maw is doesn't reveal ability. So, you know, especially if you're new to it, you might be like, oh, Sheer Force, I can just switch in X Pokemon and be fine. And then you get whipped in the face with like a Dragon's Maw, Dragon Darts, and your thing goes bye-bye. Like if you have a neutral Pokemon, like AV Regen Swampert can typically do a fine job into Sheer Force Life Orb Pulse. So if you see no ability, you're like, oh, Sheer Force Life Orb, I can just go no. You get whipped in the face by a Dragon's Maw, Dragon Darts, and your whole entire team just goes shredded through. And it's especially good when their Fairy type is more offensive, or at least, you know, 4 times weak to Steel Wing, or if it's just like, you know, weak to Psychic Thing, that might even be enough to justify it. But this set can go mixed, it can go full Fizz, it can go full special, it can go Choice Band, it can go Choice Specs, it can go Dragon's Fang is the item I usually prefer on it, just because, you know, when you're only boosting one move and it has an immunity, it's better to be able to switch up. But you'll typically see Dragon's Maw running physical with Dragon Darts, Steel Wing, Dragon Dance, U-Turn. But you can slap whatever you want on it. It's a Dragon Pult. You can run Will-O-Wisp. You can run Thunder Wave. You can run whatever.
You can run just Specs Draco. Like,
yeah, you can just run Specs Draco and fuck that bitch up. Like if their Fairy type isn't very specially bulky, you can just hit it with a Shadow Ball once and you'll be fine. But it's a very stupid set in the right matchup, and it's definitely one to look out for. And another set that branches off this that we don't actually have listed because it doesn't see much usage is Tinted Lens, which is specifically physical Pult. Special Pult doesn't really have the damage output untinted, but like physical banded Pult with tinted can smoke. Like in matchups where the Fairy type probably isn't coming, or if it's just a bad Fairy type and you're confident in your abilities to be able to beat it, and the only thing standing in your way is a really fat Steel type, tinted will fuck that shit over, and you'll just blow through everything else. It's such a very dumb Pokemon when it works out.
And even if the Steel type ends up taking a Darts very well, it still has to, like, you can sit there, see the damage, and go, okay, let me get this tinted U-turn off and get 20% more chip, and then go into the guy that deals with the Steel type, which could be Magpul, and then all of a sudden they're down a Pult answer.
Which is another thing I like about D-Maw, because you can pair it very well with Magnapul, which may not always work. It's a little bit magic fishy, but it's very fun when it actually works, because if their Fairy type really is not amazing at the Pult, you just trap it and then you win.
Yeah,
very funny. And then the next set is Queen Majesty. Which, do you want to take this one or me?
Yeah, I'll take this one. This set is a bit matchup fishy. It's more so when you're playing into things like Weavile, Chen Pao, or even if you predict them to be running Triage Draining Kiss on, you know, certain fairies that they have, and you go, okay, like if I can position my Pult to get a DD off, which is mainly what you're going to see Queenly Majesty for, is when I'm going for a game with DD, and I know the only thing you have is no longer your resists, no longer your immunities, and is just offensively stopping me through means of HO. Like you've completely forsaken switching into Pult, and you go, okay, I'm just going to run Ice Shard, Sucker Punch, Triage Draining Kiss to deal with Pult when it comes time. I click DD, I have Queenly Majesty, and all of a sudden you're strapped to find switch-ins to Darts and Steel Wing, and Pult will end the game that way. You can run Life Orb, you can run Boots, you can run literally whatever item you want. The target is to end the game when you click DD though, and you know, either deal with their Steel and then DD later, or just say, okay, it's game time, and do it that way. It's more niche than every other set because you won't be running Queenly Majesty every week. But there will be that one week where you look at your opponent's team and go, damn, they have no ways of dealing with Pult outside of priority.
This is the one Pult set that is specifically for cleaning up a game, because it won't really put in too much effort early to mid game, but late game when their resists are a little bit chipped down, this thing will blow through a team like no other. You can run mixed on it, you can run mixed DD with it, but
it is specifically for DD pull. You won't really see Queenly Majesty on really anything else, and if you do, it's probably not the best, and it's just better off being Dragon Dance anyways.
Right.
But it is, as AZ said, it is pretty fishy, and it's only really for very select matchups.
Right.
And the next one, I think this is the last one, right?
No, there's two more. There's this one and then another.
More, yeah.
Technically three, but yeah.
Okay, the regen pull is my baby. I've used this shit so much. Regen pull is incredible. It can go assault vest, it can go boots, it can go helmet, it can go whatever you want. It's not typically used a ton, but that's just because a lot of the time a matchup won't call for it because maybe the offense is of a certain type. You know, this is Dragapult does have a weakness ridden, you know, typing. Even though P heal is such a good set, it's mainly just because of the fact that it can sit there on almost defensive checks, make progress, and hinder someone's offensive capabilities. But regen is different to where it's a little bit more matchup specific than P heal, but it functions similarly to where it will sit there and it will make progress, but it'll make progress in a different way to where it clicks status, clicks pivot move. Or if it's assault vest, it threatens and lives random hits it should not live. But regen pull is good for, you know, if you need a pull that's just going to last a long game. If its typing is really good that game, like if you're facing against Sneasler or whatever, I don't know. And then grouped in with this category, there's other things like, you know, there's Fluffy Dragapult that does exist.
Intimidate pull.
Yeah, Intimidate pull, Fluffy pull. Like these sets do exist. Fluffy is also grouped in the category of being a cleaner set with weakness policy. But there's Fluffy pull, there's Intimidate pull, there's Regen pull. These are all kind of matchup specific, kind of not matchup specific. But when they do come, it feels like they just take control of the game and you can't really stop them because regen pull in the right matchup is just so absurdly hard to get rid of, and it can stop so many Pokemon and be so annoying. It's very funny when it does work, but it doesn't work too often simply because of lack of defensive stat line, and a lot of the time the offense will hit pull super effectively. That's just how the meta
to
goes.
Kind of add on to why you may not run regen pull is that you may find that because we are 2 AC, other mons need regen more than pull. Right, Pult doesn't need regen, but your steel that doesn't have recovery will need it. Right, so you're saying, okay, I need it on this, and then I need it on this. But for the weeks where you know may not need regen on both of your walls, and Pult could slot into that if the matchup provides for it.
Yeah. Oh, and to be a side branch of this type of Pult where it just spams status, clicks U-turn we didn't put it on a slide because people don't use it too often to justify it being on here, but I personally use it a lot and I personally love it and I recommend it. Magic Guard Life Orb Dragapult with X Dragon Darts plus a status move, whether Thunder Wave or U-turn, and whether Thunder Wave or Will-O-Wisp and U-turn, I think is an incredible set, and I think it can put in a ton of work in almost any matchup that it's in. It'll just spam U-turn, get in your breakers, get in your offensive guys. It'll hinder everything. It'll be annoying. It can even break through if they don't have the right things. It's a very stupid set. I personally think it's an incredible set.
Right. That set kind of works the same vein as, you know, Boots Regen, where you don't want to take the hazards, but you do want to be very annoying. So you'll go run Magic Guard and you say you need lefties for the recovery, just to kind of for that long-term stick potential, while also avoiding Toxic and Willow.
Which can be very important, avoiding that stuff and being able to just sit there. But it's kind of like baby P heal pull, except different.
And then to lead into the next pull is full utility pull, screens pull. I mean, this is a very very, very matchup fish pull. You sit there and you go, damn, I can't deal with their offense. And I just need to out offense them. I need to bring a bigger gun than they have, and I need to, press the emergency button. And that's where you go, okay, I'll run screens pull, I'll bounce their hazards, and I'll set up 5 guys in the back that will run the game with screens. And when they bring in their pull answer and they see screens go up, they may be inclined to sit there and try to then set up with CM or whatever, in which you get to just click curse for free, start chipping away at their guy, and then you turn out. Again, that's a lot of progress you just made with your pull. And you go into your, let's say, I-Val in the back, and you start clicking SD or CM, and the game can be over from there because they were expecting non-screens pull. It's a very matchup fish, and it's a very, break glass in case of emergency kind of pull, but it is a pull to talk about.
Yeah, it's definitely a real set, and it can go bounce, gag, prank, whatever. But
I mean, you're not going pranks, so you're 142 speed.
this is true. I've run regen on a light screen before, which works actually really well, especially with
Right.
curse.
Yeah, regen would work as well because you may want to get pulled in multiple times to get these screens up.
Especially on a screens team where it's more like bulky screens and not like I'm just gonna hit you hard now screens.
Right.
It's definitely helpful.
So, I mean, after every single one of these Pult sets that you guys have seen, you're going to sit there and you're going to ask yourself, man, how the hell do I beat Pult? Like, this guy seems like it does everything. And you're right, it does do everything. And to that, we say we have some very slapshot ways of beating it, honestly.
We do. Pult, okay, before we get into the list, I just want to say beating Pult comes more down to play, both on your opponent's end and your end, and less being in the builder, because you have to just kind of run like blanket things for Pult, maybe one hard check, but the rest just have to be like blanket fizz bulk, blanket special bulk, and then that one like P-Salt guy or guy that doesn't care about Will-O-Wisp but is immune to T-Wave, that can like kind of handle the status sets. But like other than that, we do have a few like specific ways to like, really annoy it or to beat it.
Yeah, this is to help you in the builder against Pult. Like he said, the way you're beating Pult is to kind of just outplay it, make it uncomfortable, make it so that it can't do what it wants. You have to kind of outpace them in that sense.
If you can put Pult in a situation to where it has to think, then it is a lot easier to deal with. Like if you have a Misty Terrain guy and then you have some just raw bulk, they actually have to like put some thought into their plays. But if you like give them the opening, that's on you.
Right. So I mean, just some general ways to beat this is obviously the resist abilities. P-Salt and Misty Terrain on your fairy steals or your dark normals.
I will also add that Assault Vest fairies that are neutral to Steel Wing work very well. Assault Vest Tapu Koko I've seen success with.
Right.
Assault Vest, Tapu Fini, even though it's weak to Thunderbolt. Well, now that Hadron's legal, that one actually doesn't work at all.
Right. And then AV regen steals work in the exact same vein. Yes. You tank the Shadow Ball. You don't care about the Draco. You don't care about the darts.
The flamethrower might hurt, but you can AV to kind of
because you're AV, it helps a lot. Misty Terrain helps with the Dragon Stabs, obviously, and then it helps beat the utility Pulse. So you can't get Willowed, you can't get T-Waved.
I will say, preferably, it would want to be a normal type because U-turn kind of hurts.
Yes, absolutely. You do want it to be a normal type, but a dark type will make do, right?
Yeah.
And then just raw bulk, guys that are fat as hell. Ting Lu, Snorlax, those guys that just have a lot of bulk, a lot of HP, Alomomola, kind of help keep Pult in line.
Especially for the special sets, because the special sets, while strong and while hard-hitting, you have to remember this thing does only have 100 base special attack, and while to some old people that may sound crazy saying it's only 100 special attack, that's jack shit nowadays. We got Iron Valiant.
Yeah, IVAL having 115 both sides.
Yeah, we got 130, 120, but we have Darkrai, we have Raging Bull, we have all this shit. 100 doesn't do shit. Its big thing is that it has coverage.
Right.
But if you can just raw neutral bulk its special sets, it's not that tricky to handle. The big one, I think this is the best way to beat Pult ever. A Fizz Def P-Heal normal type will beat the status sets. It will hopefully beat the physical sets because it's Fizz Def. And the special sets, they can only hit you with Draco, really, preferably, unless you're weak to one of its coverage. So I do think that's one of the bigger ways to beat Pult.
I mean, what ends up happening with the P-Heal normals is they Draco you once. You take 60 to 80 or whatever.
Yeah.
You
unless
protect.
It's Demon, you die.
Yeah, unless it's Demon, you die. Then you protect. You get your 25% from both turns. You go, okay, now I live -2. And then you just bulk it out like that. So Mons like Ursaluna, Snorlax. Even if you drop down to I guess you can go all the way down to type Null, maybe?
Type Null is more of it'll just regen out Pult.
Right,
Which, by the way, really, really bulky regen can beat Pult.
Yeah, just through the War of Attrition, get your hazards up, regen it off, and play the War of Attrition with hazards and then maybe resisted hits that it comes in on. This thing's not immortal, as though it may feel sometimes.
Unless it's P-Heal, then it is.
I guess so, yeah.
But if you Thunderwave Pult, unless it's P-Heal, I guess you really can't. But if you Thunder Wave Pult, then it's kind of dead weight, to be honest, because its big thing is that it outspeeds all your offense, but now it doesn't outspeed any of your
now
offense.
It's just a regular breaker where it has to come in on your walls and click big buttons instead of being faster than everything,
which is fucking lame,
right? Which is much more manageable from anyone that plays regular mons or AAA against not Pult. You go, okay, there's rules that this guy has to abide by. It has to come in on a wall on a weaker hit and then click big button after that.
Yeah. Which I also want to skip to this, which is where webs comes in, because if you see a Pult and your only way to beat it is webs, go for it and pray it's not boots. I mean, if that's what you have to do,
absolutely.
Do that. Because if Pult gets to -1 speed, you can definitely handle that thing a lot better. But if it's boots, say goodnight.
Right. I mean, if it's boots, it's unfortunate, but you kind of have to put the ball in the Pult player's court and go, okay, you have to be boots this game, and that limits you to X amount of abilities, and then I can try to build around that instead of just
X amount of abilities, X amount of sets, and then I can try to you build your HO around that.
Right. And then like we said, even though Queenly Majesty was a great set to have, not all Pults can be DD, and if they're giving up a lot of their offensive pressure by going Queenly Majesty not set up, then you can kind of try to fish out this Pult with Ice Shard, Sucker Punch, Shadow Sneak, and Triage, Draining Kiss. You can try to fish out that ability, or try to say, okay, I know you're not going to be that ability, and then you can beat it through that way.
And then Scarfers. It's a fast Pokemon, so obviously Scarfers will fuck it. Scarf Pursuit is funny because you can just tap it, and either you hit it with Pursuit and you're faster than it when it stays in, or it switches out and it takes a big hit. Pursuit is also another way we didn't mention because we forgot to put it, but it is a Ghost type. Usually it's not too afraid of Pursuit because U-Turn and Will-O-Wisp combined means that it's usually not scared, especially with P-Heal being such a good set on it.
Right.
But Pursuit is a way to beat it. But one more way I want to say is Pult can struggle to Oko things a lot of the time. And I mean a lot of the time, especially depending on set. Unless it's like Dragon's Maw, it can struggle to Oko. So that gives you openings. If you need to throw away 80%, 90% on a regen Pokemon to kill Pult, I recommend you do that. You can always regen it back. You can always P-Heal it back. Killing Pult is huge if you need to throw away HP on a Pokemon that can regenerate it later. I recommend just killing the bastard, getting out of your way. It'll save you a lot of troubles in the later game, in the mid game, or in the early game, no matter the set. You just have to kind of throw stuff at Pult, hope you get the predicts right, play right, put it into uncomfortable situations, threaten it with a lot of stuff, all that type of stuff. It will struggle to get Oko, so just keep that in mind, because while its stats are good, 100 special attack isn't anything to write home about, really. It just gets the job done because it's so fast and gets so many opportunities. So that's a thing to keep in mind when playing against Pult or when using Pult, is that you need to really work on your positioning if you're going to be using something like Specs Pult, something like Banded Pult, stuff like that.
I mean, again, it's just tempo, right? Keep your tempo up, keep your foot on the gas. Don't let the Pult player do what they want. Again, all of these ways we talked about are kind of slap shot ways, like, general, like you can try this, you can try that. It sucks to say, but it is just a play thing. You have to play around the Pult properly. And then again, drafting. If you allow Pult to run Adamant, if you allow it to run Modest most weeks, it will be allowed to do that. But if you just draft something in that speed tier, it's hard. But if you just draft something in that upper echelon of speed tier that allows it to not run that, it loses a lot of power.
I think the main thing is that 130 benchmark. If you can get something in that 130 benchmark or around there, even if you do allow it to run Modest or Adamant, at least it won't be able to run a ton of bulk, so it'll still be able to, you can still chunk it randomly with things.
Absolutely.
I think that's just important. Limiting what EVs it has and what natures it can run is huge. And it's just it's one of those Pokemon where, like, it is the best Pokemon in the format for a goddamn good reason, but it is not anything that's unreasonable to play around.
It's not an unbeatable immortal Pokemon that is unfair to play against. It feels that way sometimes, but again, put Pult in the right hands and it feels that way, and put Pult in the wrong hands and you just sit there and you go, damn, like, how did they get Pult and not someone else?
Yeah, Polt is cursed with always getting drafted by lackluster players, and we have not seen a single amazing player pop off with it yet because it's the first post. So whoever gets first pick is getting it.
Right.
I mean, it's if it's not, then
it goes first or second, depending on what is viewed as the best mon in the format. There's one other. I give it to Polt, but the other one is nothing to laugh at either.
I also give it to Polt, but the other Pokemon is very, very close behind it and was for, I think last season was considered the best, but people have come back around to Polt. I always think Polt was the best. I think it's a monster. I think it's a demonic Pokemon.
Yeah, I think Polt is the best because of its versatility. I do think the argument for the other one is that it feels very unfair at times.
I agree, but I do think Polt is better overall. Right. Which we will be getting to that other Pokemon in our next video.
Yes, sir.
But I think
that about wraps up this video. If you guys enjoyed it, leave a like, leave a comment, leave a suggestion. Let us know what mons you want to see, what sets you want to see.
Yes. There is a channel in the server. I think
leave a comment. Give us the engagement. Yes. Leave a comment.
Leave a comment, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Leave suggestions in the channel, on the server. Leave them in the comments, wherever. Do whatever you want. But yeah, that's the video. That whole. That's all that type of stuff. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.